Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are talking with John. He's back. This guy is an accomplished architect in the New York City metro area. And as we learned, surprisingly, in the last couple of episodes, he's also an accomplished tennis player and was a tennis pro back in the day. John Riggio joins us once again. John, how's everything going?
Good. How are you, Steve?
Doing great. Doing great. Good to have you back on. And it's always fascinating to learn, the back end of architecture and what's going on, the trends, because this really kind of dictates where we live and where we work. If we didn't have great architects like yourself, we wouldn't have buildings and places to reside and work in. Even before we get there, we haven't really talked about your family, where you live, where you came from. I know you came from Long Island, New York, but give us a background. Your family, how many kids you have?
Yes. Oh, really? I was born in New York and on Long Island, and I grew up in Jericho, Long Island, which is right next to really Hicksville. It's really part of Hicksville. And so as far as my work is concerned, I opened my office years ago in Hicksville from living in Jericho. And from there, I ended up getting married. I involved my wife with my work. She was working as a filing representative for me for a long time. I was able to get her into the field of work with the building department and helped her work, and she even was able to make her own business for a while. So that is good. And with that, we also had a family. We have our daughter, Nancy, who's 17 years old now. And I also adopted her son. At the time was very young, from China. And he came here, and his name is Zhao Wayne. And so that is our family. And things were working really good. We ended up moving into New York City, and I was living there. I was living in Flushing and in Elmhurst, and I had my office in New York City. My office was in a couple of locations, was in Astoria and Long Island City, and then from there we ended up coming over here. Too much pollution in New York at the time, so we moved over here to New Jersey, and so that's where I have my office here in Metuchen, New Jersey. And in New York City, I'm keeping an office address there in Manhattan to stay within the New York City area. And that is the present state of my office.
Sure.
And it is so that was really basically how it worked. And so everything is going good as far as that's concerned.
How come you moved out of New York City? So many people aspire to live in New York City. Coincidence, we're both, from Long Island, and I could take the train to the city, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. I say never, but I don't know if I could ever live in the city.
Yes, what happened is I see on television a lot of times they talk about New York and New Jersey, but what happened as far as my architect work is concerned, I was always working in New Jersey over the years. I even go into Pennsylvania. So when I was working on Long Island, a lot of different architects, they had jobs in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So going through New Jersey and Pennsylvania was completely normal. There's always some work there, and there doesn't seem to have any problems. They always like people from New York coming and working in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And I was working for one architect that moved to New Jersey. So he was over here, and I was working for him for a while. And
What made you decide to open up your own firm?
Oh, yes. But I think there were some problems. I think something did happen to that architect that moved here to New Jersey. He did pass away, and so that was pretty sad. And but I used to come here. I used to go to New Jersey. So at that point, I was already getting used to working in New Jersey. I was going over here to New Jersey, working on different jobs. And but what really propelled us to move to New Jersey was really when we were living in the city. For some reason, we felt that there was too much pollution, so we moved over here. And the pollution has went down, way down since that time. But I think there was a trend of a lot of people where we were living coming over here, particularly to the Edison, New Brunswick, Rahway area. And that's how we in particularly moved here. That was what we were doing. And
Well, I got to ask real quick because I'm familiar with the area, and a lot of us, have visuals of suburbia versus city, New Jersey versus Long Island. What's the difference for you when you want to compare the two?
well, I think New York City and Long Island are really much more of a rich area to live in compared to what people say. I notice on television, but really, I think Long Island, and I also get that from my architect work. That comes down to the square footages of the houses and the value of the houses, the value of construction.
Mm.
It is much more expensive in New York and Long Island. And so when I came over here, working here is a completely different world. I think coming over here, then when I moved over here, unfortunately, I think I got into a situation. A lot of people talked about moving to Orlando, Florida. If you want to go to Disney World, and then you come here, and then all of a sudden the phone shuts off. And so what happened with that was I eventually, just to skip ahead, I was able to solve my problems. I was able to open up the office in Manhattan, the address, and that seems to have gotten rid of a lot of the problems and keeps your mind correct of living in the New York City. I think on Long Island they always used to say from the top over there, you have to really center yourself in Manhattan, New York, and in New York City for everything to work really good. I think it's the same situation here, just they don't say it. And but I seem to have followed that path that everything is corrected now with New York City, and that's pretty good. I think that's one thing with the architect work is I noticed, as far as just from going to New Jersey to New York, is that like we're working on a lot of houses trying to bring the square footage up, bring up to maybe 5,000 square foot on some houses, but a lot of them are very small. I noticed they even have like a 1-bedroom house here in New Jersey, which was really really very small. I've never seen anything like that. That was something new. So there were a lot of existing conditions here that were really very undersized, and
Yeah.
so that is one observation that I'm willing to talk about. But I notice on television a lot of times they're not willing to say it. I think the lifestyle in New York City and Long Island is much more rich than New Jersey than they're willing to say, and so I think that is to live here. You're really it isn't as luxurious as New York City and Long Island, just to say it.
Yeah, I guess every area has different pockets of that. I'm on Long Island. I'm not in an affluent area. I'm a regular guy, but I'll say this: there was a time where I worked in the Hamptons. Now, everybody pictures the Hamptons, what it is, and it's so affluent and just amazing and everything. But I'll tell you, I would run into Alec Baldwin, Gwyneth Paltrow next to where I was working at a radio station, and it didn't mean anything. After dealing with the traffic, a month in, it was like, hi Alec, hi Gwyneth. I just can't wait to go home. It's kind of an illusion of what it is, and the Hamptons aren't. It's what you see on TV. It isn't really exactly what the reality is. So yeah, to your point. Plus, in a lot of areas, Long Island, yeah, it's pricey. Taxes, even in a non-affluent spot for Long Island, because I've been house hunting, just sold a house, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, not exaggerating, is minimum like pushing $400,000 minimum. I'm not even making that up, and that's just the basic area. That's not anything crazy.
Yes,
I don't know if it's considerably cheaper in New Jersey and spots where you are, but
yeah, I think well, I think there's a whole thing between things that are existing. Some houses, I think the lowest price house I've seen sold from the inside of construction work was only like $12,000, compared to after the new construction is built, and after the construction of the house is finished, everything is brand new, the price might be as much as like $1 million. So that's one thing that we're working on here, is really making much larger houses. The value was a lot greater than what is existing.
So let me ask you that question based on what you just said, because you see new construction, existing construction. Let's talk residential right now, but a lot of people always say to me, yeah, you don't even think about any kind, new construction, because when you buy something existing, everything is in. So new place, you got to add, make sure you have lawn, landscaping, other things that typically may not be included with that house. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, okay.
Or is it better to renovate? Is it better to get something and then add to it at some point than try and, get that brand new house that's going to, may not include everything at the time when you buy it?
Yeah, there's always those certain factors with either just renovating, adding on, or building completely new. If you wanted to, sometimes if you want to build completely new, a lot of people might think about all of a sudden too many stops. There's too many stops, too many permits to get, and then that little extra cost of construction for them might put them where they're out of their budget. So a lot of times they don't want to go ahead with that. That is, so instead we would try to make it where the house looks completely new, but maybe some pieces are still existing, saving them some permits, some additional construction costs of new footings and things like that.
Sure.
That's usually how each project goes.
As an architect, John, and by the way, your website is johnriggio, RIGGIO.com. What's it like to be in the city and drive around and look at the different types of buildings coming from where you are? It's got to be almost like a mind blow, because especially New York City, you've got everything from buildings from the 20s to, just built last week, all mixed in together. Do you find that extremely interesting? Is it still exciting for you?
Yes, of course. Yes. Architect work is very exciting. It's I like doing the work. It is a good profession, and it is very good. I enjoy doing the work and looking at it and seeing the different structures and everything. And of course, I always look at all the different types of designs that they're building, and I always think that that is the next style that's really going to take hold, and everyone's going to try to design to make it look more like the style that you're seeing getting constructed. There's always very trendy. There's always those trends in the different materials and styles that are getting constructed. They're going to start to spread around, and everyone's going to try to make a similar design.
If you were to pick a building in New York City, and it could be, turn of the century or whenever it was built, what would you say is your favorite style, or the one you admire the most right now?
Okay.
Like, if you think back in your mind, is it, if you saw a building that was built in the 50s?
Well, I think for New York City, Manhattan, I think Art Deco was really like the biggest influence. I think looking at Manhattan, I always think of Art Deco as being really the main influence of Manhattan from when I was young. They still had a lot of those buildings. I think growing up, they weren't really all demolished and everything. I think that's the number one style I think about in New York City.
Okay. And when you say, Art Deco, are you talking about like
It's like the Chrysler building.
Okay, like something that was potentially built in maybe the 60s, somewhere around there?
Even earlier, Art Decos go back to 1920.
Okay, didn't know that. Interesting. Okay. And that style for interiors in terms of furniture is coming back, from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's a very detailed style. I think that's really the biggest hold on Manhattan was really Art Deco. That's the image I think about it in Manhattan. I still think about looking at those buildings, and I think that's the biggest influence. I think a lot of the buildings were the influence of Art Deco was really big with the tall buildings, and then it's also like with when you go to eat like at diners in Manhattan, everything was Art Deco. I always remember that. I think that's the biggest style was the Art Deco. Really, also at the ground level, when you go to eat, everything is Art Deco.
As you just said that, John, I got a visual, not kidding, of what you're talking about, those diners in the city. And I even see one, I could even tell you, this is how my mind works. You throw something out and it spits it back. It was just before COVID, February of 2020. I went into this diner, couldn't even tell you where it is exactly. I'd have to think about it, but it had that style. And I was just like looking around at the tile and the design and the seats and the counter, by the, call it soda fountain, if you want to call it that. But yeah, very distinctive style. What do you think about when you travel more of a, like Florida, where you have a more tropical look and more Caribbean look? Is that Does that motivate you at all? It's kind of my thing. I love that look. How
Yeah, a
about
lot of those things are really like when you work on restaurants and things like that. A lot of trendy little styles, like they're gonna make something look like it's in Florida in the warm weather, things like that. Yes, a lot of things, but otherwise, for other construction, it isn't really that important. But I think those kind of trends are usually for things like restaurants and that kind of construction.
that brings to mind when I think about construction, even like a place like Florida or some of the other areas where they're prone to severe weather like hurricanes. Um, what are you mindful of? Like when you talk about a roof, is it such a big difference for building or planning for a place like Florida as opposed to, let's say, New Jersey in terms of the weather? Or is it still hurricane could come anywhere, got to, or tornado, got to be mindful of that no matter what?
Yes, especially with Florida, there's a lot of high wind codes and things
Okay.
like that. So that area there is different. In California, they have the same thing with the seismic
Mm,
problem there. So you need additional certification for seismic buildings. So there is a difference between those type of areas
wow.
than New York. I think a lot of the states, they aren't that different, but those particular areas like Florida, there is some differences with the high winds and the tornadoes.
So when it's extreme weather, it's on the radar of the planning and permit department and the architect, of course.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah, in Florida, well, I think I didn't get did go there, but yeah, there's always some jobs that they have in Florida. Some people work down in Florida. There are always some jobs from living up here in New York and the New Jersey area that they are some jobs and people they go to Florida to work.
So, that being said, where can you plan for? So I know it's definitely New York, New Jersey, maybe Connecticut, tri-state area,
Well, yeah, so right now I keep my license in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, but I
Pennsylvania.
could really design in any state. I could design like some people I work for, they have a whole list of franchises. So I can make designs for them as far as franchises are concerned. And then they could give it to a local architect there and they can get certification. If there's enough work in any state, I could easily get my license in that state. It isn't a big deal.
So in order for a plan to be used to construct something, it has to be from somebody who's licensed in that state.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
either someone's license or you can just apply and get your license in a few months and then you can stamp drawings in the state.
Gotcha. Yeah. Pennsylvania, what's different about Pennsylvania than say New York or New Jersey in terms of architecture?
I don't think things are really that different. Working in Pennsylvania, they're about the same. They aren't really that different from working in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So what would you like to work on? If you could, somebody's going to walk in your door right now and say, "Hey, we want to build a insert whatever it's going to be." What would be your dream project right now?
Oh, okay.
Would it be a big commercial building? Would it be something with, many stories? What would really feel good for you? I mean, this is the fantasy right here, but I'm just kind of curious.
Oh yeah, I think usually as far as my work, yes, sure. If they had a series of maybe 50 houses to do, I mean that would work really good for me.
Okay, so and I'm not just talking monetarily. I'm just talking about fun in the project where you would just like to, yeah. So you're saying to create a community, a development that would be kind of part of your passion if that would have, just walked through the door.
Yeah, well, right now I'm working on some franchise. I'm working on uh, Hibachi Express. I'm working on a couple Hibachi Express
Oh,
franchises. So a lot of times, like you work on two Hibachi Expresses. If they were to give me 50 Hibachi Expresses, of course that would work really good. I mean, that is a nice way to work.
when you work with a franchise, is it very similar in terms of every location?
Each location is different. A lot of times you would then apply some different standards of styles that they have, and you would make that for the new location. But there's always differences in each location. all kinds of different factors involved, construction factors, design factors, things like that. And that's really why they would hire an architect, because I take all those different factors, I apply them to the plan, and I make a set of drawings for them, making everything's to code, and then giving them the style that they want as far as like a franchise.
Yeah, and it's always interesting when you see a business, let's call it a restaurant, go into a location that was something previous, and you can see the style, what it was. I just saw this the other day. There's restaurants called Friendlies, right? We had them on Long Island, still do. And I just saw a restaurant that went into the footprint of one of those, and it was a very distinctive style. I'm like, I know what that was. They didn't, it's not like they blew up the entire building and started fresh. They kind of retrofitted this new restaurant in there. For working with a franchise like Hibachi Express, are those freestanding or are they within shopping centers?
They are within shopping centers.
Okay. All right. So you got to really conform to what's there.
Yes, yes, yes. So with that, everything is already set that you're going to build within the set retail store that they already have. So that is one factor that, as far as those kind of jobs, you don't have to really design on the outside of the retail store, and then you would just apply all the different construction factors to the new restaurant area.
Okay, so I have a really important question for you, John. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Has nothing to do with architecture. I'm playing tennis with my daughter this weekend.
Yes.
And my forehand is horrible.
So, all right.
Give me 3 tips that I can, because she beats me mostly every single time. We just play for fun. We hardly ever play, but we're getting together Saturday or Sunday, and my forehand it's horrible. Backhand.
Oh, you have to keep your wrist stiff. You have to keep your elbow stiff, and then you rotate from your shoulder, and that's gonna give you a really good shot to hit the ball, to give you consistent hit over the net.
Okay. All right. Now I'm getting all right. So it comes from the shoulder. And the one thing that I always forget, I don't play a lot, this is why, but the rotation of the racket, because sometimes you'll hit it and the racket's kind of tipping forward, and that's going to force the ball down, obviously. So it's remembering all those things at the same time. I guess that's why pros are pros, right?
Yes, yes. First, you start with the very basic grip, the continental grip, and then you will start to move it to Eastern and then semi-Western, and that will give you a nice top spin on the ball.
That means absolutely nothing to me, John. You know what I call that? You know what you just said? You know what I call that? That's known as Google. I'll have to find out exactly what that is. But yeah, we just play for fun. And I recently moved, so I have a nice tennis court. Nobody ever uses it, and it's even covered. There's trees around. There's nobody around, so it's like, all right, game time. Let's see if we can play. And she's yeah, we're both about the same. And then sometimes, mostly she wins, but sometimes I have that rare victory. But again, it's just for fun. I should have taken it further. But interestingly, when I think about it, my dad used to play tennis with me when I was, like 14, around there. And that was kind of his thing. We would get together and play tennis. And now I'm kind of doing the same thing with my daughter. Your kids play at all?
Yeah, of course we play some tennis. Yeah.
Wow. Do they, have they, well, I guess it must be great having you, a tennis pro, and one that's noted from back in the day, giving you lessons. How great is that?
Yes, 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 yes. I've given them lessons. Yes.
Wow. And you still play, right?
Yes, of course.
Oh, fantastic. That's the best part about summer, but you shared last time we got together that you play in the winter. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, yeah. If you can't play indoors, you can still play outdoors in the winter.
I might try that now that I have a tennis court and it's well maintained. I might give that a try, but I'm going to be honest. I don't know if it's going to feel the same, like being with shorts and a t-shirt and out there, with thermal wear on.
Oh, yeah, these days they have the thermal underwear. I mean, when you're young, you could just handle the cold, but yeah, they have the thermal wear
Right.
for the winter.
So, final quick question on that, because I'm kind of curious. Don't your hands get cold? Are you wearing gloves in the winter when you're playing?
No.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I'm intrigued. I got to ask these questions. I always wondered. I can't even imagine playing tennis in the winter. What's the lowest temperature in the winter you would play?
I think a lot of times during the winter, most people they wait for like one of those warm afternoons. Sometimes it goes up like 60 degrees. And
Okay.
then if it's like really sunshiny out as far as outdoor playing, yeah, people would show up as maybe as low as maybe even 34 degrees. Might come out to play. But
Hmm.
usually things slow down under 60 degrees. I noticed 60 degrees is really the temperature. Above 60, everyone's out on the court. Under 60
Yeah.
degrees, most people are going to stay home. And a lot of times you might want to find an indoor court under 60 degrees.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the nice thing, yeah, at least, in the colder regions around the country, if you have sun and no wind, it just feels so much warmer.
Yes.
Yeah. John, always fascinating talking with you and good to learn about you, your background and architecture as well. John Riggio, Riggio is his website. And I haven't Googled you yet, but I'm looking at some point to see those back in the day tennis videos of you that you said they were floating around out there.
Yes, yes, yes. Sure, I can get. I have a clip of them. I can put it on there. Maybe we could talk about some more tennis on the next one. I have all kinds of secrets I could tell you about. Really good ones.
I'm going to tap you on that for sure. All right, John, always a pleasure and looking forward to that next time.
Great. Thanks a lot. Good talking to you.
Thanks a lot. And we'll be right back. Hang on.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.